scenes like that coming in at a Montego Bay in Jamaica. We had feared that it would look just like that. In fact, I believe, to my knowledge, it's the first video I'm seeing, at least on our air, out of Montego Bay. We know that that jog off to the west, at least more broadly speaking, that trend west over the last 24 to 36 hours, better for the capital in Kingston, but a very poor scenario, a poor solution for Montego Bay. Let's get back out into this. We'll check in with our correspondent, Robert Ray, who's live in the middle of all of this. Robert, what have you been seeing? I just saw some video there out of Montego Bay. Obviously, this is an especially a brutally hard hit.
Absolutely, yeah, and wind gusts kicking up right now and heavy rain. And if I lose you, Ian, because I just did a second ago, yeah, it's just the way it goes. We are operating on a Starlink right now. It's the only way we're getting the signal out, and on a Wi-Fi calling on the Starlink. So indeed, I'm seeing the same thing. Whenever we can get service, we're seeing videos out of Montego Bay and that area that are just horrible. And there are 25,000 tourists in those hotels and resorts as I speak right now. And you know, it's probably very, very scary for many of them right now. And I know that, you know, we saw something where people were kind of arguing about food and things like that. That is what people go through, and the anxiety of these systems, and so many people packed together, hunkering down in the resorts. They can't go anywhere, and the target just headed there with these winds and these rains. I mean, we expected a more easterly track when Melissa went into the made that turn to the north, and it just really has not come to fruition. It's a bit of a wobble to the east, but not enough to spare the economic heart of Montego Bay as far as tourism goes, with all the resorts and by the way, all the businesses on the sides of the two-lane road, the cultural area, which leads you know, basically into Montego Bay, and so many people love to see that on the Caribbean Sea. So where we're at, you know, essentially in north central Jamaica, 50 miles away from all that is occurring right now in Montego, you know, we are getting strong wind gusts and rain. It is not consistent hurricane force winds, but nonetheless, you know, some tiny particles of debris off trees and vegetation. Thus the helmet and the glasses. You have to do this if you're going to stand out here and try to document what is happening. The sea is a quarter mile down the road, and I would love to get in a vehicle and drive down there and see what's happening, but we simply can't do that because of down power lines that we're hearing about, and some debris that is on the roadway, and the darkness is upon us in about an hour and a half, and so we're in a position where we couldn't even report live if we wanted to leave, because we have a Starlink set up in a certain position. That the incredible team is sitting in a garage, deep into a garage, and protecting the equipment right now, trying to get this reporting out there. It's very difficult to have live transmissions in this, but I worry about what is happening in Montego. And you know, when we can, when the day breaks, so we will make our way over there, and hopefully we can get into some of these affected areas. But you may see roads that are just impassable, and the floodwaters because of all the rain as well. Some of the images from the southwest area of Jamaica that are coming out are just terrifying. The backside of this storm, after it makes its way over Jamaica and clears the area, you're going to see a push of water as well from the sea into the Montego Bay area as well. And that's going to cause destruction. So there's so many variables. You know, Ian, we've been talking about this for the past couple of hours. There are over 800 shelters that were available to residents of Jamaica, and nearly 3 million people live here. What we're told by government officials is that almost 400 of them are occupied, but only about 6,000 people in total from their head count so far in the shelters. And that really is not a lot when you think about it, when there's almost 3 million people here. So I hope that people found a safe place, whatever they could do. And high ground at points may not be the best place because of the water in the mountains and some of the flooding we're seeing in communities at high altitudes. a pretty good wind coming through here right now off the mountainscape here. We're on a bit of a slope here that leads down, though the rain is not as intense as it's been earlier, but we expect that to pick up. It's the ebb and flow essentially of the east side of the storm, but the core is just really compact, and so it's just not going out as wide as anticipated, and especially because it didn't cut as east to this area. Unfortunately, gosh, it just made a line toward Montego Bay. So this is not going to be good for that part of the country. I hope that the Kingston airport is okay so that aid and supplies can get in there, and we can get some people off the island that were here visiting this great place with so many incredible people and great culture as well. It'll be interesting to see also how the flooding occurs in Kingston, with surrounded by those mountains and some of the water that might take time to come down and inundate roadways and create flash flooding. But I think right now, we're in the thick of the impacts to the west of us, and certainly to the southwest, where it made landfall at 185 miles an hour. Ian?
Robert, you got me thinking as you were talking about some of the numbers with the shelters. I know amongst native Jamaicans, there was a little bit of frustration with some of the messaging of folks saying, hey, we're an island nation. We know how to deal with tropical impacts. But watching how this has played out and what you were just telling us, where this hit in Jamaica, that might be the spot where that would be the fewest number of people where that's the case. These are people coming in from all over the world to visit beautiful Jamaica, but they don't come from tropical settings, and they're dealing with high-end tropical impacts. Did you come across a lot of tourists that maybe have no clue how to handle something like this?
Yes, Ian. I caught part of what you're saying, because again, we're in and out. I can only hear you because of the Starlink right now, but indeed, yeah, when you think about it, look, I mean, this team, we go into places like this so we have an understanding of how to handle it, but the average person has no concept and no ability to prepare for something like this, especially when you book a vacation in advance and you come down to paradise and you expect to have great moments with family and friends, and then all of a sudden you're stranded and you're stuck with hundreds and thousands, quite literally, in resorts and hotels, and you're hungry and you're concerned, and there's no power and there's no air conditioning, and you can't get a cell phone signal out to let your loved ones know that you're okay, or even speak to anyone around the world that wherever you're from. So I think the level of anxiety that's probably going on with the 25,000 tourists on Montego Bay who are stuck, quite literally, and trying to do their best is something that you wouldn't wish on anyone. And it's going to be a long road after Melissa leaves this island, because again, the cell phone service may not come back as quick as everyone thinks it's going to. The power grid is compromised, especially in the biggest impact areas with those winds, and it's going to take time for officials to get in and clear those roads with chainsaws and just sheer manpower and equipment. That is not going to be easy. I mean, I witnessed this during Hurricane Beryl July 2024, and that wasn't a landfall, and there was issues. And I drove literally from Montego Bay all around the west end and down into the southern pockets where exactly the landfall of Melissa occurred. And look, that's the breadbasket of this island. It's rural, it's agriculture. There are some resorts down there, but not like there is on Montego Bay. But those roads are fragile, certainly. So not an easy situation right now. There's a pretty good wind gust coming down here, and rain definitely picking up. Ian?
Yeah, Robert, we're not even close to that point, but we know when it's safe, and for that matter, even technically possible with what you were explaining with your overall setup. You'll be showing us some of those places. I'm scared to see what some of these hardest hit places even look like. Yeah, we lost them, but we'll be checking back with them. That's Fox Weather's Robert Ray. Stay safe. Yeah.